Welcome back. Let's talk about what has been playing out in Anambra State. At the weekend, some of us were there to cover the Anambra State governorship election, where the All Progressive Grand Alliance yet again made its presence strong, winning the landslide over 70% of the votes, about 422,000 plus in excess of vote, as against over 584,000 of total valid vote cast. Although it's an improvement from 2021, which is about 10% voter turnout, to now about 21% voter turnout, is still very low turnout of voters if you look at 100 as against 20. But yesterday, the governor collected his certificate of return from the Independent National Electoral Commission. Let's bring in the national chairman of the party, Sly Ezeokenwa. He joins us virtually from Awka, the Anambra State capital. Mr. Ezeokenwa, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Yeah, thank you so much, my brother Joe, for having me.
Congratulations to you and your party. Let me ask, how does it feel, yet again, victory for the All Progressive Grand Alliance?
Well, for me, it is a very exciting feeling. Why I describe it as exciting and truly humbling is that for the, should I say, the 6th time now, Indian Anambra have continued to repose their trust and faith in APGA. It shows that the people understand the extent of what APGA has been able to bring to Anambra in terms of development. And so, looking at the numbers, because it's very, very important that we highlight the numbers to actually underscore the significance of this victory. Out of 21 local government, APGA won in all the local government in Anambra State, 21 over 21. And out of 326 electoral wards, APGA won in about 318 or 319 or so. And then in all the polling units, we have 5,718 polling units where elections were actually conducted. APGA won in about 99.4% of those polling units. And so when you have figures like this, I think it shows the level of acceptability, it shows the level of acceptance, and it shows to what extent people are willing to reward a government that has fully cared for them over the years. So for me, it's exciting, it is humbling, and it calls for more service from us and dedication from us in Anambra.
Level of acceptability are judged to have been bought by the candidates in the election, a lot of whom put out evidence online to show the level of vote buying, which was widespread according to them, which was also corroborated by civil society that we had on the program, which, you know, told us categorically that the ruling party was deeply involved in vote buying in this election. I'd like you to speak to that.
I do not agree at all, and I've made that point on several interviews. There are certain allegations you hear. I think the best way to describe it is shocking. Shocking in the sense that I do not understand the deep pocket that APGA has, you know, to control the resources to be able to generate the number of votes that we did, when we have a candidate of the ruling party at the center that could actually amass any level of funds that he wanted. And we had other political parties that we are trying as much as possible to throw some funds or inject some resources in this election. Look, my dear sister, there's a point I will make to you. There is a hypothesis that we tested in this election. And what was that hypothesis? The hypothesis is how much, when a government plays the politics of development, how much that politics of development translates to what Mr. Governor calls a political capital, or political incentive on the part of the people. Why do I say this? If you check the trajectory of our campaign, we had our primaries in April. And after the primaries, I think the public campaign started sometime in June, July. And from the time public campaign started, the people of Anambra, the 179 communities in Anambra, the 326 electoral ward, took up a different approach to this election. And what was that approach? The approach was a public or communal ownership of the campaign of APGA, in the sense that what the governor did in the communities and local government he visited was simply to show his presence. The communities organized themselves, rented canopies, rented stages, did everything, decorated the venue, and invited the governor to come speak to them about the impact of what he has done in those local government. And at the end of the day, the people gathered their meager resources and donated in aid of the campaign. That is what I call ownership. We've never witnessed such a thing in this country. I stand to be corrected. And so when you see, all these pockets of allegation, because the question is, or from the, the way I think about it, when they stay and they look at the gap, they look at the margin of lead, they begin to ask themselves questions. What could have happened? In everything I've heard, I've only seen just 1 or 2 pictures on social media where I think someone was captured outside, well outside of any polling unit with some funds that we don't know how the picture emanated, and it is trending on social media. Aside from that, there is absolutely no modicum of evidence that anybody has brought to substantiate these allegations of vote buying. So it's not enough. I'm a lawyer. It is not enough to just say, oh, civil society organizations and various persons have come out to say, oh, this election was officiated by massive or widespread vote buying. Bring those evidence. And I can tell you that APGA, as a political party, has never been our style. It has never been our approach to election. Our approach to election is to connect to the people. My dear, you monitor these campaigns. It was as if Soludo was the only person that was moving from community to community, local government to local government. And at the end of the day, when it translates to political capital or goodwill of the people, which has been expressed through a credible and integrity, free ballot, then you come around and say, oh, it must have been a product of vote buying.
Before we leave this matter,
we must do better than that.
It's hard to believe that you say that your party didn't have the resources, because well ahead of the election, we counted as, stakeholders in the election, supporters of your party donated monies to the campaign, to your candidate and the incumbent. We counted in excess of about 500 million naira. And your candidate was also incentivizing the foot soldiers, to go ahead and get people to come out and vote, which was, frowned upon as vote buying, even though remote. So when you say that your party didn't have the resources to even commit to vote buying, that is rather hard to believe, Chief Okenwa.
No. When you understand, if you talked about in the excess of 500 million. I don't know if you can do a simple calculation. If you divide 500 million by 5,718 polling units, I think what you get there is a pittance. Mind you, there are agents that will be deployed across all the polling units in the state. And under the Electoral Act, it is well within the law for those agents to be given whatever pittance that will aid them in the performance of their responsibility on the election day. That is the responsibility of the campaign committee. And I do not think such amounts can ever achieve anything meaningful. But the point I'm making is, irrespective of whatever permutations you're making, the most important thing is that as a national chairman and someone who was an integral part of this campaign, I can tell you that we did not allocate any amount of money whatsoever for vote buying. And this issue that you raised about the governor incentivizing, party members, that issue has been discussed, and even the campaign committee had even brought out a statement to explain what the governor meant. It was very simple, that over the years, and just like my brother Joe said when he was, reading the introductory remarks to this discussion, he said, and he mentioned the percentage of voter turnout in 2021 and what we witness now. Even what we witness now, which is, yes, quite an improvement over what we had in 2021, it is still far less than our expectation, because we believe that as a state, we should be doing between 40 to 50% voter turnout. And what the governor did was to try as much as possible to incentivize the party members at the various levels to go all out and campaign and ensure that that negative trend of voter apathy is actually upturned in this election. Yes, the nature of their campaign has brought some reward, because if you look at the numbers, like I said, you will see a remarkable improvement from what we had in 2021. But still, it is still a far cry from what we believe, where we believe we are going, or where we believe we are headed.
All right, Mr. Ezekawa, is it the performance? Because we're going to talk about this performance of His Excellency the Governor. whether or not is the real main reason for the overwhelming support, or there are confluences of factors that have played a key role. One of those factors is that APGA is naturally a legacy party. Coincidentally, Odumegwu Ojukwu, who is the founder of the party, who is seen as the patriarch of that region, was born and he died in the month of November. So it looks like this is a heritage party in some sense, and that's on one hand. On the other hand is the fact that some members of other political parties have said that the APGA party had tactically immobilized them and not allowing them to campaign as much as they want in terms of discrimination by cost. I've heard that as well. On the other hand, it looked like the APC itself at the national level was not really interested in causing any upset on one hand, because when I looked at the statement of the president congratulating His Excellency Professor Chukwuma Soludo, I had empathy almost empathy for Ukachukwu Nicholas, because the joy of the presidents was literally radiating from that statement. So ab initio, APC had no pressure on the governor, the legacy issue, the tactical demobilization, and of course the issue of vote buying, which we understand that the major political parties, it was free for all of you to do whatever you want. So do you really think it's his performance or all the confluences I've just listed that played a key role in helping him to win this election with a landslide?
Well, I think for me, anybody can do all manner of permutations, all manner of analysis, all manner of whatever, leading to this victory. But then it's what I call, like you said, it's a confluence of factors. There's no doubt about that. But top of that factor is what I call the politics of development. From the beginning that the government of the administration of Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo got accepted in Anambra State, the governor, right from day one, said that he was an agenda with a deadline, and then there had no time. Even the avalanche of the campaign promises that he had made, and given the extent of what I may call the issues, I don't want to say deterioration, to that extent. And the governor set out immediately. And if you look at, if you use any indices to measure good governance, I think Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo tops the list. I stand to be corrected, of any state in Nigeria, be it in terms of deployment of technology, be it in terms of infrastructural development, be it in terms of human capital, and be it in terms of massive investments in the social agenda. And all these are what has led to that political capital that I said the governor talked about, that he was testing a hypothesis. And what was that hypothesis? It is a hypothesis that when a government is truly interested, or when a government has heavily invested in the politics of development for the people, in terms of women who go to various hospitals to have their delivery, antenatal and postnatal care free of charge, in terms of children who from the time they are giving birth to until they finish the senior secondary school, it's free of any tuition or any fees whatsoever in all the public schools in Anambra State. And so when you see a government that has prioritized,
so my apologies, sir. So, sorry, you just don't lose your trail of thoughts so that I can throw in this question as we begin to wind down. So what exactly in specific can you say? I know you've started listed some in terms of what will mark a legacy for Professor Chukwuma Soludo, because I also know I was in Amobia. I was in community primary school Amobia to cover the election. So I was in Oka South. Some of my colleagues were in other places, and one had complained about the state of road in Nnewi, which is supposed to be like the industrial zone of the state. So what exactly has he done?
Yeah. My dear, if you say you were in Amobia and then you didn't see what Soludo has done around the Anambra State capital of Oka or Anambra State capital territory, then I really doubt if you were really in Amobia. When you talk about Nnewi, there is a dualization project that has gone on now from Amobia that you talked about up to Ekulobia. And in Amobia alone, this government has constructed about 15 internal roads. They are still standing till date. And the Nnewi you talked about, this is the first government This is the first government in the history of Anambra State that has paid massive attention to the development and infrastructural improvement of Nnewi axis. From Nwagwagwo, there's a place we call Nwagwagwo. There is a dualization project ongoing now that crisscrosses Nnewi and stretches up to the Onitsha-Owerri Expressway. And there are more than 6 or 7 internal roads that have been constructed within Nnewi. The major challenge within Nnewi, I can tell you, is the neglect by previous government or previous administration. None of the administration that has been in Anambra has really paid attention to Nnewi. It is now that Nnewi is receiving its due attention as what I may call the industrial capital of Nigeria or even Anambra State. And so for infrastructural development, you remember you asked me whether it was a confluence of factors that led to the magnitude of this victory. And so when you remove the performance of the governor, you look at the quality of the opposition as well. The question is, who did you have on the ballot that could have posed a challenge in Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo? I do not think there was actually anyone. And apart from that, there is equally the issue of zoning that the governor was equally talking about on various campaigns, that in Anambra State today, it is more like an unwritten rule that zoning has come to stay. And the people of Anambra South of what, which is the senatorial zone where Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo hailed from, has just 4 years to complete their bite at the cherry in terms of the governorship of Anambra State. And it will move to Anambra Central. And so all these and many more. The only problem I have is, I think you were saying something trying to allude to somehow, do I say, a hidden support by the president. Of course, I will tell you this. The president has never failed to mention his admiration and the extent of the friendship that he has enjoyed with Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo. He has been there. It's something that has lasted over 2 decades. And you don't expect the president to come all out. So that on one side. Again, these factors, what is it called? These appointees are members of the opposition or Progressive Congress in Anambra State. They are people with eyes. They have feelings. They interact with people in various communities. And they tell you that there is absolutely nothing you can do to change a Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo from the helm of affairs of Anambra State. If you talk about development, the man has worked more than any government. If you talk about management of in fact, I think before this election, the state of performance and ranking of states in Nigeria, and Anambra State was #1 on the list. So how do you, in all your right senses, decide to change a winning team? How do you change a government that has brought so much development, so much joy, and so much attention to Anambra State in view of the fact that Anambra now tops the ranks in virtually everything? A governor that has won the best governor of the year from about 10 to 15 reputable newspapers and organizations all around the country. There is absolutely nothing you can do. Any indices you use to measure good governance, check it. This government tops the list.
That in itself will place a question mark on our democracy if, you know, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces would express support for a candidate and not particularly show interest in terms of, you know, how the election is conducted as against, you know, what we see in other parties and in other states. But that's another matter and another kettle of fish entirely. Other candidates have thrown a challenge to us and we're interested in taking it, by the way, but we'll also follow up on some of the questions that they're asking of the administration. As far as infrastructure, perhaps you let me land on my question. As far as infrastructure is concerned, in many parts of Anambra, they're leading us to believe that some of the things that we see, you know, may be tantamount to propaganda. They're particularly asking questions about Onitsha, that development ought to have, you know, been facilitated at a more advanced stage, considering that it is one of Africa's biggest main markets, but the state of infrastructure in Onitsha still leaves much to be desired, not just infrastructure, but also the environment as well. I'd like you to speak to that, and then perhaps you want to also speak to other issues that you're raising.
I think for us not to belabor this point, I really am willing, you know, to donate my resources, and at least because when you stay in the comfort of your studios and then make these analyses, I think you're really, really detached from the actual situation on ground in Anambra State. So I wouldn't mind sponsoring the entire crew on a trip to Onitsha. Incidentally, my local government is Onitsha South local government. In Onitsha South, that's where I am registered to vote. That's where I live. In Onitsha South local government area alone, all the roads that the administration of Mbadeluju, Ngige, Peter Obi, and Obiano did put together is not up to what Soludo did in 3 years. In Onitsha South local government area alone, if you get to that, in fact, the day we went to commission one of the critical roads that cuts across the artery of that particular local government, a keke rider came out, emptied his pocket, and gave the governor the money that he brought out from his pocket, expressing immense goodwill and appreciation for gratitude for what the governor has done in Onitsha South. What did the keke man say? The keke man said previously, in a week or 2 weeks, I used to spend social amount of money just going to mechanics. If I apply the road once or twice in a week, I'll end up the remaining 3-4 days in the mechanic. But because of the extent of the development and how the governor has rehabilitated virtually all the roads in Onitsha South, that he no longer has that issue with paying the mechanic a large chunk of his resources. And so when because you just sit down and probably take points or take views from social media, probably some persons who have different angles or different issues to grind with the governor. I understand that bit. But the fact is that no matter what you do, you cannot change the reality, or you cannot change how much of a feeling the people have towards the governor of Anambra State in what are the remarkable improvement or the remarkable development he has brought in most of the local governments in Anambra State. Okay. Let me give you another statistics. In just 3 years in office, this government has constructed close to 1,000 kilometers of roads. This was far more than most administration did in 8 years in office. In that same Onitsha South local government that I told you about, today there is standing there a brand new specialist hospital. This is a local government that has never had any public hospital from the inception of Anambra State till now. And so that's why when you make these postulations, I think you're really, really, really detached from reality.
All right, Ms. Isaac, we're totally out of time. So if you listen to our questions, he said that's what the opponent is saying. So it's important you put the records right because, you know, we're there to cover the election. So we ask questions. We saw some of the things he did. We saw some of the things that have not been done. So it's not a postulation, as you put it. We're a reputable organization. The question I asked you about in Nnewi is because I was covering that central part of Amobia. I had another colleague in Onitsha. We were somewhere in Nnewi. So besides covering the election, we're watching as to what exactly. I even asked questions, who did this? They say, is this person that did this? This one did this. Oh, the governor did this. The other governor did this. So it's not a postulation. So but it is your place to respond and counter the fact if they are not accurate. But thank you, Mr. Sly Ezeokenwa, National Chairman of the All Progressives Grand Alliance. Thank you, sir, and good luck. Congratulations yet again. More work for the governor. We hope he does even better.
Thank you very much. We'll definitely do much, much better in the second term.
We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll switch gears to Edo State. The controversy around that museum and whether or not the story about revocation, that looks like a new word now, of the CFO is true or false. Well, the government has said not exactly the picture. We'll find out in just a moment. We'll be joined by a spokesman. Join us again.